Hey there everybody, and welcome back to another speed build. Today I had to actually break this video down into two separate videos. So today we are going to be watching the exterior build and the floor plan, I guess, for this Golden Shire estate that I built as part of a SimSave file. There's a group on Facebook. It is called Everything Sims, and I've been a part of that group for quite a while now. And they were holding an event where they wanted to create a save file for Brindleton Bay, and that's where the inspiration from this one came from. It was decided that the theme for this build, for the whole town actually, was going to be like Old English Cape Cod style. So thankfully they put some pictures together to show us sort of what looked and style to go for, because quite frankly I didn't have a clue. So I studied those pictures, and the main thing that I noticed was the roofing. And we all know how I feel about roofing. So this build did take quite a long time. I was very particular with it because it was for a save file, so I wanted to make sure it fit with the theme. So I also wanted it to be quite large. Part of the task was to create it for a 7 sim household, so it did need to be rather big. And as you can see here, I began the struggle with the roof quite early. I don't often do builds like this from the front to the back, like the way that I'm actually working on it. Usually I start with a floor plan, but I don't know, I knew the roofing was going to be my biggest challenge, so I decided to start with the aesthetics from the front and then like work my way back into the house. I think it worked well for this particular build. So I decided to create some sort of rooms on the top and just have the front of the build looking the way that I wanted it. And then I was just going to figure out the rest as I got to it. So I wanted it raised up as well. I didn't want it to be sitting flat because it was going to be on such a big lot. I decided that it needed to be a little bit more, I don't know, dimensional, I guess, just not flat. So I did raise this part of the build up off the ground, and I did use the platforms, as you can see at the front there, to give it that little incline. This roofing was almost the end of me, honestly. The amount of shouting at my computer that I did during this build, I'm sure my husband thought I was losing my mind from the other side of the house. I was not happy, but in the end, when I got to this point, I was like, okay, maybe this will work. Maybe. And then I hit this bit here and I was like, oh no, what have I done? This is not going to work. It's not working. But after a little bit of fiddling around, I sort of went, okay, let's just work on a bit of the house for a little bit, see if I can get a shape happening. Maybe it will look okay then. I wasn't happy with how it sat there, but I raised that roofing up and decided to make it like a, what's it called? A balcony. And then put some chimneys in there to kind of cover up that area. And then I was like, okay, I can live with this now. And it really started to take its shape here, but I didn't know how to do the side of the house. So I just stuck some roofing there to cover up those little bits. And I thought, oh no, actually that doesn't look too bad. So this is the basis for the house. Like I said, I was being exceptionally detailed. So this took me a lot longer than what some of my other builds do, because I was being very, very fussy with how it looked. Sometimes the color schemes, I don't know, it just comes to me and I'll go with whatever. But I had a particular idea in my head and I wanted to get it as close to that as possible. So it came together, the front anyway. And then I started to add in little details, changing the roof color, putting in some fencing, and trying to get the wallpaper what I wanted. And I've just noticed there, you can see I've done like the creamy beige color. And I literally just noticed as I was putting all this video together that somewhere along the line, when I've been coloring or putting in the wallpaper for the rest of the house, that front bit, that roof, I've put the wrong wallpaper. I don't know how I've done it. So I'm going to be watching this build now going, where have I made that mistake? Because it's up in the gallery and it's obvious as anything to me now. Clearly wasn't at the time. But yeah, if you do choose to download this one from the gallery, you might want to fix up just that little bit of white boarding across that front roof section that is now, yeah, it's white where it's supposed to be like the, I don't know, the brownie color. So if I see where I make that mistake, I'll point it out again. But yeah, we all make mistakes. We're not perfect. So I began working on the back here. Once I had the front the way that I wanted it, I didn't really know where to go from there. So this was all freehand. This was just off the cuff, work it as I got to it. There was no idea for the back. It was just the front that I knew what I wanted. I fiddled with the roof a little bit more and I decided that the front of the house looked great, but there was something missing. And it just, I don't know, to me it looked too square. So I decided to add in like a little rounded deck area, which you can see I struggled to get to happen because I'd forgotten that I'd raised it up and used the second level. So once I remembered what I had actually done, I created that round little bit out the front there and like a little decking area along the side. And that kind of gave it a bit of a better shape. But then, of course, came the roofing. So at first I thought it might look good to have like the angled roof, but I don't know, I just can never get it to line up. And I didn't want to use the octagonal roof because it wasn't quite the right shape. And sometimes that will actually stick through the walls and mess up my rooms inside. So I went with more of a like a clear glass and just like a see-through bit. I decided it would be like the outdoor area where you could have like the little fire pit, and I'm pretty sure that's what I do with it in the end. And the terrain wasn't too difficult to manipulate in this one, purely for the fact that it wasn't very high off the ground. I just smoothed it out and where I could and put in a lot of plants to hide like that section at the front where, you know, it won't smooth out, which really bugs me. I think Sims team, listen up. Terrain tools. Let's have more options, please. They're great. I love the terrain tools, and I know you only updated it not long ago, but I still feel like there is room for improvement there. And excuse me if you can hear my child shouting at me through the door. Sorry about that, everybody. I am adding in just a little bit of shaping, I guess. I wouldn't even call them rooms. I just didn't like that it was so flat. So I just began putting in bits of platforms and walls and trying to make it not so flat. And then I had an idea to create like a little balcony area here that was split into two for two of the rooms. The Sims that were designed to live here were created by one of the other people in the group, in the Everything Sims group. So I did the build, they created the family to go in it, and we kind of worked together to make sure that it would fit well. You know, you don't want Granny living in a punk rock house, as funny as that would be. So, yeah, two of the Sims that were living in this house were going to be like very spoilt adult children. So I thought, well, they would need their own space, and I decided to have two separate balconies for them. And that's about as far as that thought process went in terms of the interior of the house. I just stuck to the exterior, and knowing that it was going to be for a rather wealthy family, that gave me the idea to have a drop down into like a really nice pool area. I went back to the front to just check out the shape. I know there's a lot of movement with the camera, but those of you who've been watching my videos for a while now will know that I kind of can't help it. I tried to stop doing it, but I found that my builds weren't the same when I was trying to keep the camera still. So, sorry, not sorry, sorry. My builds are always going to be a little all over the place. It's just how I do me. That's how it happens. I wanted this to be really square. I don't know, I just think that posh people are really symmetrical. So it just needed to be the same all the way around. And in the center, I wanted to put like a little water feature just to break it up a little bit. And I don't know, I think it turned out pretty well. I kind of got to this point and realized that the house was probably big enough, but it needed more to it. So I started working around the sides to try and again make it just not so square, not so plain, I guess. And then it hit me that they might need a garden because, you know, being rich people, they've probably got servants and all sorts, and they would want the best of everything. And a part of the family that was being created for this household were kind of outcasts. So I decided to build like a pool house and have them living out there. Because let's face it, a lot of wealthy people have like a pool house or a granny flat or whatever you call it in your part of the world. And it made sense, and it was going to fill up some of the space that I had left over on the lot. So, yeah, a pool house it was. Again, struggled with the roofing, but I knew it wasn't going to be a second story, and I just dragged that roof in and left it like that. I realized afterwards that I probably should have made these walls a little shorter, but I thought it might mess up the main house. So I just left it in the end. Carrying on with the same theme as the main house, with like the old English Cape Cod style, I put like that little arch roof on top. I considered making it like a glass roof or the veranda glass, but I think it looks better the way that it is. Again, I didn't really worry about the interior yet or how I was going to fit the family of three that were going in there. I just went with the looks for the exterior. And I think it was about here that I really didn't know what else to do, and I had to take a break. And I asked in a few of the Sims groups with some photos, like, what else could I do in that other corner? I don't know, I was just having like a build block where I couldn't think straight, and everything I did I hated, so I just deleted it. And working on the pool house there was much the same. I just kind of hit that wall, hit a rut. So I stopped playing for a little while, took a break. Sometimes that's the best thing you can do is just walk away, especially with large builds like this. You just kind of have to walk away, take a breather, have a cup of tea, whatever it is you do, read a book, and come back fresh. I don't know, I often will try and persevere, knowing full well that it's not going to benefit me. Like, I just end up getting sloppy and I don't take the time to put in all the details. So, yeah, sometimes you need to take a break. I came back and still avoided that area in the corner, went for some landscaping instead. There's another hot tip. Sometimes if you lose your mojo and you don't quite know where to take the build next, go on to landscaping because it can make all the difference. The amount of times that I've looked at a build and gone, ugh, I don't even know that I like it now. And then I put in some landscaping and it just brings it back for me. So, covering up that bit of terrain that I couldn't manipulate anymore, which I was talking about before my child started calling to me. That's right, I remember now. The bits of terrain that you can't hide. Very, very annoying. I wish we could manipulate it, even if it's under foundations. Like, I know there's limitations to the game, and there's probably a very good reason why it can't happen, but I just wish it could. I decided to put in some trees. Not too many, though. I didn't want to overcrowd it. Just enough to give it a bit of depth, make it feel a bit more homey and lived in. And it certainly brought the pool to life. I created that fountain on top like I wanted to, and everything started to fall into place, and I was really, really happy with the build and the way that it was shaping out. But I still had no idea what to do with that other little section. So I asked in the Sims group, and finally people got back to me and suggested like a hedge maze. So I sat on the idea for a little bit because, when I build my builds, I like to have the areas that I create like have a purpose or a function and be usable by the Sims. So like, a pool area, well, they're going to use that, aren't they? They're going to swim in it. They're going to get fitness skill. If you create like a massage area or a spa area, they're definitely going to use that, you know. But a hedge maze, I was like, are they actually going to use it? Yeah, they'll walk through it, I guess, but I don't know, it just didn't feel like it was going to be useful. So I avoided that area for a little bit longer and worked on more landscaping to like hide the terrain. And I went with like the whites and the beiges in the plants to keep it with the theme of the house. This little bit I put some rocks and some more plants just to hide the fact that that floor's actually floating, because it is the second story that I've kind of dragged down. And I think it concealed it pretty well. You can't really tell that, it's floating there. And once I'd done all the landscaping, I kind of had no choice but to do something with that area. So I did what I normally do, zoomed around, did everything else that I could think of, procrastinated some more, put in some lighting. I always forget the exterior lighting, so I'm very pleased that I didn't this time, especially being that it's such a big build and it needed all that detail. Here I just raised some lights up, just brightened up the pool a bit. As I said earlier, this is a two-part video build now because the exterior and the landscaping and just the general floor plan took so long that this video was just going to be forever. So don't forget that there is a second part to this, and it will be up, and it will just be the interior and like the furnishing, I guess. But here is the final decision. I decided to do the hedge maze. Now, it is not my strong suit. I probably need a little bit more practice at doing hedge mazes. Some of the ones that I've seen on the gallery or in other people's builds, they're quite amazing. But for the purpose of this build and for my limited hedge mazing talents, I think it turned out quite okay. I kind of just did a basic outline, I guess, and tried to make it somewhat maze-ish. But I wanted to add something else to it so that the Sims would have a purpose for actually going through this maze. I didn't want to just plonk a hedge maze down and have it really serve no purpose. So once I had kind of finished messing about with the maze itself, I decided to add on to the side just some little areas that Sims could go to like sit or relax. And I fenced them in so that hopefully the Sims would find their way through the maze and go and relax in these nice little areas. That's what I had in my mind when I was building it. Whether or not that actually happens, I don't know. I thought about decorating the bottom of the pool, but once again, everything that I did, I hated. And being that for this particular build, we could only use base game and cats and dogs, I didn't have a lot of the things that I would normally use. Usually when it comes to pools, I utilize a lot of things from Get Together and Spa Day, usually. And in this case, that wasn't possible. So, yeah. Added on some little areas to my hedge maze, just a nice little seating area either side. I'm sure people will, if they download this into their game, add in their own things that may not be base game or cats and dogs. That will open up a few opportunities. And I decided, I don't know why, I think I just didn't like the height. I thought it needed to be bigger because the whole build was bigger. That the hedge maze needed to be higher. So I tediously went around and made it higher. And I think I got to a certain point. I don't know if it was this side or the other side. And I realized that it wasn't the same. I'd done one side not as high as the other. Only by like one or two, raises, I guess. But that's enough for me to have to go and fix it. So this is me quickly fixing up my mistake so that it would be the same. And I think once I'd done that, I was relatively happy with the hedge maze. Of course, if I had spent a lot longer, I could have done more, but they're just not my thing. What about you? Do you guys add hedge mazes to your builds? And if you do you have any tips? Let's share the love. Drop a comment below. Tips for creating good hedge mazes. Far better than the one that I've just done. Alrighty, so that was pretty much the exterior done. I might have gone back and added a few things later, but I moved on to the interior. This is the pool house that I just kind of put in a few rooms. I didn't have a lot of space to work with. And then here in the main house, I really had no idea, not a clue how I was going to get this all to work. And of course, the way that I had built it meant that the rooms were not really rooms. So I started at the front door, put in some stairs, and really I just winged it. I felt like being a rich people's or rich Sims house, that it needed to see through to the level below. And I had an idea here that I might put an attic, but it didn't line up to the next level. So that was quickly shut down. Trying to work out where to place the stairs. I'm sure I could have done it a better way, but I didn't want the interior to be all square, and that's how I felt like it was going. So I tried to change it up a little bit, and also I had to bear in mind that I had to fit in a specific amount of bedrooms to cater for the family that was designed for this house. So there was the two elderly Sims, so the matriarch and the husband of this family. I needed a room for them. And then I needed two adult children, so their children, living in this main house. And then the third adult child was going to be living out in the pool house with her husband and child. And I'm pretty sure there was a dog as well for this family. So bearing that in mind, I had to really try and squeeze that into this floor plan. I kept the lower level for like the kitchen, the dining room, the study, like all the communal areas. And then the second floor, which I really left to the last minute because I had no idea how to lay it out. And then the third floor I decided was going to be pretty much for the elderly couple. But that's it for this video. Don't forget to jump onto part 2 to see the interior and the furnishing. Thanks for watching my video, guys. If you enjoyed what you saw and you want to see more, make sure you subscribe, and also click on that notification bell so you don't miss out on new content. You can also check me out on my socials.